Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Todd Hall, and I am joined here together with Dr. Keith Stanglin to talk about the Center for Christian Studies. I know you've probably already seen our intro video that Keith has on the front page, but we wanted to just kind of go a little deeper into kind of where CCS came from and where we see it going and how we might be able to help your congregation. So we set up this time together, do something like an interview with Keith and ask him some questions about the center and its direction and that sort of thing. So, Keith, in just a few words, tell us, I mean, why the Center for Christian Studies? What in your thinking, what's the need that we're seeking to fill?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. In the church at large, there is a general lack of well-equipped, competent, and I would say confident teachers. Teachers who are willing to stand up before the church, who I would say we trust because of their knowledge, to speak a good word to the church based on scripture and on their theological understanding. We just have a shortage of that in the church at large. And I would add that even the ministers that are out there who have received theological training need quality education and enrichment. So there's that need. And then there's the whole congregation of believers who need to be able to articulate what they believe and why. And I would say at a time like this in our culture and in our country, around the world, where Christianity is, I would say, being targeted in some cases. There's ambivalence toward Christians in many countries, and outright hostility as well. And so we need to train and equip Christians to live in a society like this, to be able to articulate their faith, not only for themselves, but for outsiders, and especially for the next generation. So at Center for Christian Studies, we're here to help and to be part of that solution. I think of what we're doing as sort of an academic arm or mission of the church, in some ways sort of canon theologians for the church. But the point is we want to help equip the present generation and the next generation of teachers in churches. I think it's so important to take a long view and think, what is this going to look like in our churches or in this congregation 10, 20 years from now? And so we want to train teachers of teachers, people who will pass on the faith to others, and to be able to do this in an efficient way that we've sometimes described as without walls, using publications and internet and other means. So in a nutshell, yeah, that's what we're about at CCS.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm really appreciative of the word confidence, because I think that, the church, we have a shortage of people who teach, but I don't think we have a shortage of teachers. It's just that they're not confident, they're not equipped for it, and we want to be a part of helping them get there. And so I think that's huge. And then also, as you were talking about, I just keep coming back to Peter's advice, and that is always be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have. And I think that a lot of Christians are just not ready to give that answer yet. And so maybe that's something that we can come along and help with as well. It's an affordable option for advanced education that I think could be helpful to all Christians for sure, at all different stages in their walk. Okay, here's one. So where in the world did this come from? How did this get started? Was this an idea that we just cooked up, do you think, or is it further back than that? What's the genesis of the idea?
Yeah, that's a good question. This was not something I just came up with yesterday while I was in the shower. This is something that has been, as you say, cooking for a long time behind the scenes. As you're aware, our colleagues and we have been talking about doing something like this for at least 6 years now. And I think now it's just speaking personally for myself, like a lot of seminary professors, I felt a calling all these years to help train people for theologically responsible ministry. But we started to realize that fewer and fewer people are coming for this education. And it's just the reality. It's true across the board in higher ed, and it's true in schools that train theologians and ministers for church work. So fewer people are coming to take advantage of those educational opportunities. Well, that doesn't mean that there are no people left in churches who need that equipping and need what we have to offer. So when I look at kind of the wide range of churches out there, and especially in a post-Christian and now sort of post-pandemic situation, I see a greater need for teachers and for equipping them than ever before. And so that's what we've been thinking about for many years now. And it just has seemed that that opportunity has kind of presented itself and come to a head, you might say, with the situation we're in now culturally and as churches.
Yeah, great. Yes, we've been thinking about this one for quite a while. It seems like a natural extension of what we've been doing. So I'm glad to be continuing that. Okay,
Absolutely.
so question for our readers and subscribers and hopefully future students and maybe fellow teachers. Where are we, if somebody asked you, where are you theologically? I mean, I've heard somebody suggest that we are critically orthodox, and I'm just wondering if you can maybe unpack that for folks.
Yeah, that's an important thing to address that sometimes goes unsaid. So I'm glad you're asking that, because there are a lot of resources out there, on the internet, in print. Obviously, there's a world of Christian products and content out there. Some of it is good. A lot of it is kind of so, and I would say just a bunch of it is really bad. So yeah, it's important to ask, what is this, right? Well, like you brought up the phrase critically orthodox. That means we teach scripture and Christian doctrine, I would start out by saying, from a non-sectarian perspective. So we're not kind of committed to some sort of denominational interpretation of scripture or theology. We say that scripture, as with the Christian tradition for the last 1900 years, we say that scripture is the Christian's primary authority for faith and practice. So that's our starting point. So we read and apply scripture in light of the best scholarship, the best, I would say, historical critical scholarship, but also in conversation with nearly 2 millennia of Christian thought and tradition. So these doctrinal commitments that I'm talking about are summed up, I would say, at a minimum in kind of the ancient symbols of the church, thinking of things like the Apostles' Creed, or at least the content of what that statement teaches, things that unite all Christians. More specifically, people may want to know that we are members of the Churches of Christ, and we appreciate some of the best features of our fellowship, which are also unifying and really ecumenical in their starting point. So yeah, I think that sort of kind of unpacks just a little bit where we're coming from doctrinally, but we and any teachers that we use for our content are all experts with terminal degrees in these fields. So certainly you can get on the internet anybody saying anything. What we're trying to provide is high quality, scholarly, rigorous content, but made accessible to churches and to anyone who wants to dig deeper and learn.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's good. We stand in the great tradition. We're critical of it where we need to be. We engage it thoughtfully and critically, but we stand in the tradition of the church.
Yeah, I love what Yaroslav Pelikan writes of Luther and his colleagues. He says that they had a critical reverence for the church fathers. And so I like that stance and just that way of putting it, critical reverence. The Christian tradition that has gone before us has a seat at the table. It's not that they're judge and jury, and that we just retrieval theology doesn't mean we just take exactly what they said and reproduce it, but it says that we listen to the wisdom of the past in our interpretation and application of Scripture. We're respectful of the tradition.
What Chesterton called the democracy of the dead, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Well, so how can the Center for Christian Studies help, my local congregation? What if I'm in a really big church and, we're interested in teaching, or, if I'm in a small rural congregation, how can CCS help us?
Yeah. So the distinction between big church and small church is, I think, important in some ways. In other ways, maybe the distinction sort of breaks down, because even in large churches, I've noticed that there's a need still, even in the churches that I would say are most well-equipped with teachers. There is this constant need, or there should be, I think, we should be paying constant attention to looking at, again, what is this pool of teachers going to look like in 10 years or in 20 years? If we're happy with where it is now, and most churches aren't, we're happy with where it is now, we still need to be thinking about what is this going to look like down the line. So I would say, first of all, if your congregation needs more equipped, confident teachers, as I mentioned earlier, then we're here to help, however that might be, whatever that might look like. So if there are individuals in your congregation who want to dig deeper into Scripture and theology, but they lack the resources for it, then we're here for them too. And we help by, and here's the concrete point, we help by providing resources. What do those resources look like? Well, several things. So there's the publication part of this. So we publish 3 times a year a journal that's intended for ministers and church leaders, called Journal of Christian Studies. And you can subscribe to that. We're going to be producing books that are intended for use in churches. It's curriculum for Bible study, but also taking people through theological topics of importance that will be accompanied with discussion questions. You can use them in study groups and discussions, Sunday school classes, even family devotionals and worship. And then there will be a continuing education side of it. So there's the publications, and then there's just what we would call education. And that comes, we would say it's delivered in many different ways. There are going to be streaming videos that we provide on our website that people can subscribe to. And then there will be, and you can look at those videos anytime, of course, and use them in any way. And then there's going to be the live opportunities. That's in-person classes, but also we'll use kind of what we're doing here. I mean, we're in different states right now, but we're using Zoom. And so we're going to be using technology like that for people who are not close to one another or to us, to teach classes and workshops and seminars. They can be like a one-shot thing, but they really should be things that are ongoing, because all of these areas and these the content we're talking about is not just a one and done thing. There's continuing education that needs to be happening constantly. So the website anyway is going to be very important. So I would urge everybody to make sure you go to our website, christian-studies.org. And the first thing that's going to pop up is a thing that allows you to put your email address in, and then you will receive free updates from us, probably every couple of weeks or so, that just update folks on the content we're producing and releasing and the opportunities that are available. So that's the best way to stay on top of the offerings and the activities. But small churches that lack resources, this is going to be, I think, a huge blessing for them. But I don't want to count out certainly the big churches who can also benefit equally from the resources that we intend to provide.
Yeah, no, that's great. And exciting to see continued development there. And with that being said, we are just starting out. So, the video courses that we've done, Keith has now actually fully completed one course, and that should be on the website before too long. The little secret is I'm doing the website, and so that's why everything takes a little longer than it should. But, we're starting it off. So, yeah.
Yeah. Todd has designed one website. And it's this one, the Christian Studies, christian-studies.org. And I would say most people I run into are very complimentary of it. No one has said anything bad about it yet. So
yeah, people tend to be nice though. So
that's right. Very well done.
Yeah. Well, so just talk a little bit about our next steps, where we're going from here. I did want to mention before we moved on to that, I forgot, when you mentioned the website, we are starting a blog, and so that will be coming through the subscription as well. So you'll make sure, how you can help us is by sharing us with friends, people in the ministry or people that are interested in further education. Send them to our website, have them sign up and get to know us and see how we can help them, and we can all move forward in the kingdom. So, but I'm just thinking about, where do we go from here? What are our next steps? Maybe share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, people should look for basically just content being rolled out in those kind of different areas that I talked about. So you're going to see, as I said, 3 issues of Journal of Christian Studies per year. I would again urge people to go and subscribe to that journal. If you go to our website, you're going to see the next 3 issues at least that are planned out there, and you will notice how practical and timely the issues and topics that we're addressing are. We're going to be putting out at least one new book per year. So I talked about those books. So look for those curriculum and study material that will be useful in churches. We have one book that we're publicizing right now, Renewal Through Restoration. So you can get that already on our website, and there will be others coming. Those streaming video modules, as you mentioned, there's one on understanding the Bible. And so that should be up very soon, if it's not yet, after you're watching this video. So look at our website for that. It's the basics of how to read and understand and apply scripture, and I think will be helpful for anybody teaching a Bible class. And so we're going to be releasing more of those. Look for another one of those video course modules before this year's over, and I would say at least 4 or 5 more rolling out in the next year. So one every 2 or 3 months for sure. We plan to host a church leadership conference in Austin that aims to equip ministers and elders and church leaders. And I would really encourage potential elders So the church leaders should be tapping people on the shoulder and saying, you're going to be part of that next generation, 10 or 20 years leading this church. And we need to start equipping you and people like you now. And so we want them to come and be a part of this conference. You're going to see Zoom courses offered, such as reading groups. We're going to be planning one on reading the church fathers very soon. I always have for years taken students through the church fathers. I'm doing that this week as well.
Wow.
And it's always an enlightening experience. And I know people are going to love that. And churches will be partnering with CCS to provide in-person training for their teachers and members who want to grow in their faith and discipleship. So we'll be doing something, later this month down in San Marcos, Texas, but we can come out to churches anytime and present on topics that they want to dig deeper into and really help their church and their teachers perhaps grow in their understanding of these things so that they can articulate them to others. Again, the best way to stay on top of all this is by signing up for those free updates on our website.
And like and follow us on Facebook, because if you're not on Facebook, you don't really exist anymore, apparently. So we're there. So find us and follow us. Well, I know you've got to get back to class, but thanks very much for your time. And we'll be doing something like this again very soon.
All right. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye.